Today, we're diving into a really wild story about how you can make an entire mountain range vanish. And no, not with dynamite, but with a pen and a new definition. We're talking about the huge controversy swirling around India's ancient Aravalli Mountains.
So let's get right into it. What we've got here is a mountain range that's been standing for 2 billion years, acting as a shield for millions of people. And now, it's at risk of being systematically erased from the map, all thanks to a change in how it's defined on paper. Okay, so first things first, what exactly are the Aravallis, and why are they so incredibly important?
Well, for starters, this is one of the oldest mountain ranges on the entire planet. It stretches for about 700 kilometers, and it's so much more than a line of rocks. It's a massive wall holding back the Thar Desert. It's a giant sponge that soaks up rain and recharges the groundwater for a huge, thirsty region. And it's basically a pair of green lungs, cleaning the air for some of the most populated and polluted parts of the world. So how did we get here? Well, believe it or not, this whole mess started with an attempt to save them. Back in May 2024, India's Supreme Court told the government, hey, come up with one clear, uniform definition for the Aravallis so we can actually protect them.
So the government went away and came back in November 2025 with their shiny new definition. And it had one little, seemingly innocent line in it. Only hills that are 100 meters tall or higher will officially count as part of the Aravalli range.
100 meters. Seems pretty straightforward, right? A nice, clean number. But here's the thing. The problem isn't the number itself. The whole controversy, the whole catch, is in how they decided to measure that 100 meters. And this is where it gets really clever, or, depending on your perspective, really concerning. See, the global standard for measuring a mountain is from sea level. Makes sense. But this new rule? Nope. It measures the hill's height from the land right around its base. And why is that a game changer? Because the land around the Aravallis is already really high above sea level. So you could have a hill that's, say, 190 meters above the sea, but it might not even qualify as a 100-meter hill under this new rule, just because the ground it's sitting on is already elevated. So what was the real-world impact of that one tiny tweak in the rulebook? It's staggering. According to India's own forest survey, this new definition means that in the state of Rajasthan, more than 90% of the Aravalli Hills are no longer officially Aravalli Hills, just like that. Poof. With a stroke of a pen, they were declassified. Okay, so you have to ask yourself why. Why would you create a definition that effectively erases the very thing you're supposed to be protecting? Well, as the source material suggests, you just have to follow the money. You see, by declassifying these hills, they're suddenly not protected anymore. And that opens up vast tracts of land. And we're not talking about just any land. This is a prime real estate corridor right near Delhi, perfect for luxury homes. It's also jam-packed with valuable minerals, which is a gold mine for construction and mining companies. And as the source alleges, this can create a very lucrative cycle of corporate profits and political donations. And the source points to some pretty specific examples. One investigation alleged that the Patanjali Group used a web of shell companies to get its hands on over 400 acres of what was supposed to be protected forest land. In another case, an entire residential complex, Kant Enclave, was illegally built on forest land, with plots snatched up by some very high-profile people. And then you have the mining mafia, which allegedly has such a powerful lobby that they've even physically attacked law enforcement officials who tried to stop their illegal operation. And look, this isn't some far-off what-if scenario. The source material is crystal clear. The destruction has been happening for years, and the consequences are already hitting home. Hard. Think about this for a second. A full quarter, 25% of the hills that were officially recorded in Rajasthan just over 50 years ago are now just gone. Mined right out of existence. Vanished. And as those hills disappear, they're leaving behind at least 12 huge gaps in that natural wall. And what's pouring through those gaps? The sand and the dust of the Thar Desert, creeping further and further east every year. This level of destruction is so profound, it's actually changing the weather. The monsoon season, the lifeblood for the entire region, has been absolutely decimated. The source material shows that what used to be a season of over 100 days back in the 70s had shrunk to just 25 days by 2009. That's not a small shift. That's an ecological collapse in progress. And this has triggered a whole domino effect of disasters. Fertile farmland is turning to desert. The air in Delhi is getting even more choked with dust now that its natural filter is gone. The groundwater, the drinking water, is dropping to critical levels. And entire lakes, like the once famous Budkal Lake, have literally just dried up and disappeared.
But this story isn't just about destruction. As the scale of what was happening became clear, people started to fight back. Let's take a look at how a pretty powerful public movement started to grow.
When this new definition went public, thousands and thousands of regular citizens poured into the streets in cities all over the region. And their message was simple, direct, and powerful, connecting the fate of the mountains directly to their own lives. No Aravalli, no life. And what's wild is just how fast all of this happened. The controversial definition was submitted in late November. By December, you had massive protests erupting. And then by the end of that same month, facing all this intense public pressure, the Supreme Court took the pretty rare step of hitting pause and putting a temporary hold on the new rule. But according to the source, there was another twist in the story. The government put out a big press release celebrating a new mining ban, which on the surface looked like a huge win for the protesters. But critics quickly pointed out that this was really misleading. It wasn't a new ban at all. They were just restating the court's temporary order. It was a PR move that sounded great, but it didn't actually change the real problem. That controversial definition was still on the book. So where does that leave things now? Well, the whole situation is kind of in limbo. That controversial definition is on hold, but it hasn't been rejected. The Supreme Court has now put together a new expert committee to take another look. And so the fate of a 2 billion-year-old ecosystem, a lifeline for millions, is now hanging in the balance. Which leaves us with a fascinating question. Can public pressure actually save a mountain range from being erased by a rulebook? Only time will tell.